Thus I have heard. At one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Vulture Peak Mountain with a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of phenomena called profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, "How should a son of the lineage train who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom?" Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Shariputra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight, and so on, until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so on, up to no old age and death, and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom and have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teata om gate gate paragate parasam gate bodhi soha. Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said that the Bodhisattva Mahasattva noble Avalokiteshvara that he has spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Sharadvati Putra and noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, suras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One.
好月卓越人我公约颂，马列谢家之间随别度，小姐说我的老说我的，多觉前波的些多觉成，确实的罗波当那罗波，别就卓别波当阿的相。要来谢罗吉罗苏瓦的，小巴多面也见能着的，确的的月的当着边边，这上过上的年色的么，家前学别吉拉苏瓦的。要月面手机的着能。大我这波这边可就见，上街可就跑跑要塞苏，上门大别接了说我的，协助大别中阿的上，高档店边面包中的见，连就能接过去说了说。高档老马能了说我的，康健身体自己从高，我到这边我说节操节，老汉这边到不给住的，要是就把这老说我的，要说个的老马都的。刚了刚的些年是我的，秋冬天梦我住在这边，这些老母能老说我的，让家送着跟了大爷们，给上他把这边叫我去，这边这边他给这把爷。说这些年能老说我的，借我更多养到那么多，这面确实别老弄这些，啥到老就也得老做呢，多就强给我。人道有上界去当做，就那那想就不多大年就做，大月之节就别做那节，若了平时上界如果就上界，就当做节就那那想就不多大年就做节。大月之节就别做那节，若了平时上节如果就上节，就当做节就那那想就不多大年就做节。大月之节就别做那节，若了平时上节如果就。哎呀，你得要不这个那个，这是个，就可要不这个嘛是。哦，可是别把这这算这家事情要不去，这没些那没些不就得了去嘛是。哎呀，哎呀，呀，他们说的啊，就是这东北人，你去出去生的老他妈老的啊，就是就把去做的，那上老师就可以是吧？那个种就不当不得了，送进那上线那么大后边人所谓的哪里多？
人家苏南的嘛，听见也不过嘛，从什么现在？
啊。我说的就是可是把路的东北人，俺看过没多少呢？就是把路下下看一把的，就是可是下下呢，老师做那些永远进多少？那话是就不当不等于送进了，那就是那上线了嘛，到后边人在的，没到把人家当出去，我给就按照一把的，当然还可以有多。
So as we always say that we're not having enough time to practice. We know that we are not having enough practice but we're not actually, using time appropriately. That is the one thing. And then time changes rapidly. The very rapid change of time is a sign of how nature of impermanent is. This is what is said by the great masters of the past.
야, 당가서 거서 보고 다 취치네 생겼지. 취치네서 가르쳐내 취치네 제외에서서는 말하기 뇌버 주고요스. 뇌버 가르쳐라기 뇌버 가르려서나 아니 당가 뇌버데 아니 대화치래. 대화들랑 가서 나춘의 시에데 내가지 대화다 된다 대화. 내가 내가 하면 다도 매이 대화. 다투기 대화 아니 다바다 다지신 거 보고 안 대주비 된다라 이게 내 취치네 맞추기 취치네 제외에서 다 진짜 개발팀이 최정이 제근이나 다들 팀도 보지다. 기노주 투는 마도는 신경 시고 년거여서 차도.
So we are gathered here today is to receiving the teachings of the Dharma, right? And our purpose of receiving the teachings of the Dharma is to attain happiness and overcome sufferings. When speaking about attaining happiness, there are primarily of two kinds: the temporary happiness and permanent happiness, or the ultimate happiness. So temporary happiness are the happiness of achieving rebirth in a high rebirth, such as human, deva, and demigods, and so forth. And the ultimate happiness refers to the state of liberation and state of enlightenment. So this is a way of giving a teachings of Mahayana teachings. In other words, giving the Mahayana Dharma teachings, that whether we are able to cultivate such motivations or not, it is a custom of Mahayana tradition to explain what kind of motivations need to be cultivated in the beginning of one's teachings and receiving of the teachings.
지 공시 소리다 저 가서 초가상에서 그래 초가상에서는 지레다 영업인의 지금 은혜 맞잖아 민중이 근데 제가 영업인에서도听了 지레다 말에 생각돼 나가서 매인전에 나주 배제도네 신주제로 와.
So now here, when it comes to the teachings of the Dharma, so we need to ask the question to ourselves, whether such teachings of the Dharma that we are following is just mere process of ritual practice or the ritual performance, or it is something that is more practical, that can practically apply to one's day-to-day life. This should be analyzed by ourselves. We as a human beings, we have our own intellect that needs to be used to what is more practical and is not.
우리는 오지만 동료들이 사바의 그냥 뭐를 받잖아. 아니 랑게 되지 나가 되니라. 아니 지 최셔세대한테 지 나가 동반는 배다서 지 많이 봐. 아니 투세와 첨부에 네 또 투병 온번에 나는 집에 나만은 투세와 첨부에 라니라 제신도 지능이 거 제미 받지.
So with this, now let's visualize Buddha Shakyamuni in the space and before oneself, surrounded by all the great teachers of Lam Rim lineage, and along with all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and remaining oneself in their presence.
근데 라다라냐기 니스체 근데 라다도 받지바 미유지바 근데 대화 것이 대화 좀 것이 근데 동양면대지 나가시 가시 조선의 조능이 근데 선전도다 문에지가 도시지 땅에는 땅에 때도 대화 정문에 주변인다서는 지 상박이 저와기 생비도네 선전도다 냥도 여반도 지미바져와이나 지 소소 내가 선발을 되어야지도 와서는 데스코로잖아
So, so then, being yourself in the presence of those objects of refuge, and then you yourself is then surrounded by all other sentient beings who has a similar wish as yourself to achieve happiness and overcome sufferings. So with these thoughts, cultivating faith towards the object of refuge and generating compassion towards all other sentient beings, let's take a couple of minutes to meditate on that and try our best to at least gain some kind of feelings, special feeling within oneself.
Atalege kuno chiba chinja nane na kansen basha yi chu sezo nane shangchu Lam Rim Chenmo sene ji tao de shiro ni rangji le jian de ma do sanje sala loye me ba ta ji ta tao de shiro ni bo da rangji le kan ji jie gu de sala wa yi na ne tao de shiro ni ma na wa den ge ji yong chen bo ji la ne tu san jie ne zo be sanje ji ko ma la do bu le se ne de ta ji bu da du shi de.
So with this motivations, one is then receiving the teachings of Lam Rim Chenmo, the great deities, the stages of the path to enlightenment. And this particular teaching teaches us how to practice method and wisdom. It is only by attaining or achieving unmistaken method and unmistaken wisdom will enables one to gain state of enlightenment. So in order to achieve such method and wisdom within oneself, one needs to receive the teachings that are given by the authentic teachers, by following the authentic scriptures, which actually teaches us unmistaken path and wisdom.
자가게 변두다 배전로 자와 냥도 전에 수주네 백개 토라죠. 근데 백개 통에네 집어 담아놓지 냥시제 도바랑지를 총. 근데 타도 가져겠다. 아니 최대 선거 영어로 종합을 치고이 아니 또뭐 뭐도 지네 녀이도는 소장이게 상조랑에 전부 선거권 남아나지 나한테 되지래 상에지 상발로 좋아지래 해나 아니 맞아 사제 동보디 보셔.
So such unmistaken teachings of the Dharma should be traceable to the source of the teachings of the Dharma, his Dharma itself, which is the teaching directly given by the Buddha Shakyamuni and transmitted to the followers of the Buddha, such as great Indian Pandits, and have undertaken a rigorous practice and gained unsurpassable, spiritual realizations, which is then translated such, profound teachings are then translated in Tibetans in collaboration of both Tibetan scholars and translators and great Indian masters. And such teachings that has been translated in Tibetan are then be practiced and meditated by the great masters of the Tibet. As a result, they have gained unsurpassable spiritual realizations and transmitted to the great teachers such as Lama Tsongkhapa and so forth. And so therefore, this is how the Lama Tsongkhapa, who actually followed such teachings and meditated and gained spiritual realizations. And whatever the experiential knowledge or the realization that he may have attained is actually then put it into a writings for his followers. So this is such a precious teachings that we are actually following and receiving today. So with these explanations covers the first outlines of the greatness of the authors given in order to show the teachings as noble source.
당연히 그것도 지라니도 그래서 정원은 원칙이 달로기 총괄되지 깔아 놔야 돼. 그래서 다리 중에 깔아 놔야 되래도 저런 문제가 나다. 동거제체 도가 만들지 받아주로 통지 담아서 타만인 세계의 녀석은 견저 템바집이 체도 신대 상신이 만내는 거 가정적으로 이제 진짜 대소해야 돼. 다랑 입소소 뭐냐 가서 이게 신주지 정해 지에서는 가서 양주소는 진짜 레몬도 아니 통만 맞자자 뒷냥냥지 아니 또 방어도 줬어네 이제다게 되면 내가 제 창소되는 류게 지래도 데려가로 소대 나서 그래서 이제 인지도나 다른 얘기.
So therefore something that I wanted to share with you is that during His Holiness advices for his 86th birthday several days ago, where he quoted from the Lama Tsongkhapa's line by saying that first one must listen to the vast and extensive teachings, and once one having listened to the vast, learned and listened to the vast and extensive teachings, one is then take all of them as your instructions and follow their instructions in the middle, and then finally, whatever the instructions that one may have received from such teachings, one should practice both day and night. This is what Lama Tsongkhapa has gone through. So therefore, he has stated that from the depth of my heart, I appreciated such a wonderful teachings that given by my great venerable teachers. So this is what we should be, first listening to the vast teachings, and take those teachings as one's own direct instructions of one's practice. Then one need to put all the teachings into the practice both day and night. It is with this effort one will then be able to gain a spiritual result. Namjung me di magwen ya do sam gwen me de dare song de go men do ngi di gwen be de dan de ji je di be ta go do rim je go do e mo nge mo gwen ya go men su ge rim che las ta di gwen be de di gwen do aus ya yu
yeah. ane tang chu da kasa dangal ke ba chu de chawa sa na ane shan chu ge san da dong ju de lo ni ge kwa ji le ge na ane lang ri che ma ge ane che che de ta rang go tu re.
So now the next outlines, as we are all familiar with, was showing the greatness of the teachings in order to engender respect for the teachings. So if you have at least some level of understanding of bodhicitta and wisdom realizing emptiness, then you are already understanding what is meant by showing the greatness of the teachings in order to engender respect for the teachings.
Ta lama da shoni ka ge ane to da shiro je ge to song sha wa yin zan ne nian ba bo ye ne de rang ji le jia to yu to ne chen ye jia wa yin na ane da rang ge ne ni xie jia da sha wa se da rang da bo che lo ra.
So then here is now if both because the both guru and the teaching itself enables teaches to how to generate bodhicitta, which is the method aspect, and then wisdom aspect, which is wisdom realizing emptiness. As the guru teaches such teachings, the followers of the guru or the disciples, your practice, the disciples' practice, is meant, or to achieve such. One engages in such practice for the purpose, in other words, of generating method and wisdom. Then we are understanding the teachings and how to follow the teachings of the Lam Rim Chenmo.
Ta zai sa ji je ba dang ba gong je lama je de zhe yin ba le ni lang ji zao xin ye de bi se de den lo je da zhen yin ba ni se de lang ri chen mo ge ma zu shu lo ne ta ne ru ji tong yan de dong bo ka ri che go re ni ge yi xian ye che dan de ma de go re de ne ani lang ji ren ba de se ro go re so yan de lang ri chen mo ge je ja re ta.
So the next outlines actually talks about the actual title or the topics of the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment, which is the sequence in which the disciples are to be taught the actual instructions. This is then be followed by the two other major outlines, because such as relying on the teacher is the root of spiritual path, and how the students then train their mind after having relied on the teacher.
tenalo cheta jan yirima de tenla nimbo karsa re de tenla nimbo lembi shikyo da nimbo cheta lembi sunye che ta tombo de ta nimbo cheta lembi sutela ni la che na ja la nimbo cheta da nimbo lembi mo che ta tombo de ja nimbo lembi mo de la son chibu chungo da timo na jirima nyasa ne che chibu jemba timo na jirima nyasa ne che chibu chenbyo na jirima nyasa ne che 다 동문이 되자 다 주변 챔피언 랑제르만 녀선에 질러서 대체는 주변 고 센제 코나된 바 센데 제다 집에 수 센제는 쇼발로 고츠제 다 동문이 되자 다 센제는 쇼발로 질러서 센제는 로발로 로그비 제세 로발로 레발로 로베 산제면 주바 된바 로발로 로베 렘바니 셰바지 다 동문이 되자 다 로발로 로베 렘바니 셰발니 대바지 뭐 질러서 제다 제바도 도제 대발로 제제 다 동bol라 송 장생 지나발라 한데 장와 장내 제세 담바송 전에 제단에 수회지 다 도만이 되자 다 손에 제단에 비추되라니 손에 제단에 비추되라니 칼로비시 델로비 델로바나 되지 델로비는 바지 다 도만이 되다 다 델로비는 발라니 니 쇼바줄로 되다 제바도 파세 타만이라 도지지 다 동볼라 송 랑게 산제 주미 바시바 파르데 심바 졸라로 제다 옌주 주미 바시바 비용 오버잖아 어세지 나티에는 동바 랑게 산제 주미 바시바 파르 심바 졸라로 제다 조지 심발라로 주준라로 저발라로 사 준줄로 셔로 산데로 셔로로 제지 나티에는 가서 동 송바 네 제비 파신라로 제지 나 제세제 담바 손네 니 테바침비 쇼발라 호용데 네 바로도 심바 졸라로 제다 디우무바자로 닌제노네 네 가서 바로도 심바 졸라로 제지 대노게 송바 네 제비 바로 심바라 같이 그것을 보고 사지되라 요지.
So we are on the teachings on the practice, the Bodhisattva's practice of the six perfections. And out of six perfections, we have so far we have covered the perfection of generosity, perfection of ethical discipline, and now we are on the particular topics of the perfection of patience.
되지. 다들 가서 거기서 봐. 그래서 준비 파션 말에 준비 파션라 자이소는데 너발에 좀만야 봐. 아니 말에 동해 땅에 아니 출랑에 생제 저 손전안에 아니 정말라 너발에 좀만야 봐. 내제 해서나 아니 내제 달라니 좀만야 비토네 야와 놓고 가서 안에 메져와잖아. 남의 땅벌에 소야 돼.
So speaking about the practice of perfection of patience, the practice of perfection of patience has three divisions: developing the patience of the disregarding harm done to you, and developing the patience of the accepting sufferings, and developing the patience of the certitude about the teachings. And those are the three divisions. Out of the three divisions, we are under the first division, which is developing the patience of disregarding harm done to one. So if one think this such practice practically here, just think about the experience you have in our day-to-day life, the way we think about others in our day-to-day life. We normally have three different beings to whom we have certain feelings. We have the feelings for one's own, the loved ones. We have the feelings towards someone whom you dislike. We have the feelings towards the neutral, nor enemy, neither one's loved ones, and so forth. So now, here, when speaking about engaging practice of patience, we're speaking about when we come across with certain conditions, which, likely makes you angry or agitated or annoying and so forth. When such situation arises, how do we apply antidotes towards that? And in what manner that we can really prevent ourselves from generating anger and hatred towards such an individual? So this is the basic questions that one need to ask.
Jajoa Megashi, Cuba Gawa Gabane city, teaching us Sona de la Ja, Kissu Sosa Magasachi Yosona, Megasa de la Tanjubota Lesona, Megawache, and Jamajuba Lesona, Gawache, Sona Mogumato Ledo, that the really Bicola and Cantachebre, Swan in us.
So now, here in the particular topic that we are discussing today is from what it says is stopping both dislike for harmers, for attainments and delight in their troubles. So this is the main topic that we are discussing on.
Taniba Tamalowina, Niba Jajoa Megashi, Gubala Gawa Gaba Ne, Senje Pente Ruby Shadow, Shanchu the Senjene, Senje Korangi Dewa Nievala, Trovatan, Senje Tanjawa De Sene, Dedala Nie could never Tanshuala, Yi Medewane, Shindangalo Nyane, Jen Shigin Joala. Chado Pande, Samba Tabane, Yi Gawache Gote, so the Deta Mayena.
So here now, under these topics of stopping both dislike for harmdoers and harmdoers, attainments and delight in their troubles. It says, contemplate as follows. After I have generated the spirit of enlightenment for the sake of accomplishing all living beings' benefit and happiness, I get angry at harmdoers when they obtain happiness on their own. After I have said that I want all beings to become Buddha, I get unhappy when harmdoers get even minimal prosperity or honors. This is extremely contradictory. You must eliminate your jealousy regarding any source of attainment by other persons and delight in it from the depth of your heart. So now, such, kind of motivations or the feelings will not be generated by the beings who have already generated the bodhicitta. And because having generated the bodhicitta, they have already abandoned the partiality and generated a genuine impartiality towards all sentient beings. So therefore, it is not possible for someone who already generated this bodhicitta. But the danger is for us, just think about ourselves, what kind of feeling that we may have. Although that we talked about, may I attain enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. We may say this from our mouth. We may express such beautiful words from our mouth, but we do not know what kind of motivation that we may have. Do we really have such impartiality, the impartial feeling towards all other sentient beings? This is one thing that we need to examine ourselves.
Shuji Java Sata Java Pond Jane Shantu Sangi Damba, Ta Piensa Java Yang Land War. That the Drake Damba Lamba Kanshila, Yakaleto, the Richi Chevinada, Betty, Gawai Masip, Missing Yagachimbo Sondoa.
So here now, although we do not have such, perfect or authentic bodhicitta in our continuum, or we have not generated such bodhicitta at this moment. We, time and again, we take bodhisattva's vow, in aspect of the wishing bodhicitta, not engaging bodhicitta, but the wishing bodhicittas by means of rituals. We have been taking those. While taking such bodhisattva's vow, we are letting all those Buddhas and bodhisattvas in the 10 directions to be our witness, that commitment that we're making. We're committing ourselves in their presence and setting them as our witness, and committing ourselves to engaging in the practice of the bodhicitta. If we were to do something that is contradictory to what we have said, then it's a big mistake.
Labado Soso Mugasa Chila and Jobana, Pasu Tajoba, the person of Yoroja, Megawa Masi, Iranjan and Kawagambo Sondoa.
So for us, as the practitioners of the Bodhisattva and followers of the Bodhisattvas, instead of, instead of rejoicing in the others' trouble and their sufferings, when someone whom you dislike is, gained and honored by someone, one should greatly rejoice from the depth of one's heart.
Yata Mayana Shanchu descendant, Senjala Pente Drubana, means on the Jewish Shede Sonda, and it's a Shandi.
So it is then, therefore, it says, otherwise, your spirit of enlightenment and the achievement of the wealth of happiness of beings are nothing but words.
Senja Tanchi Debe, Shanchu Dene, Senja Rangi Denina, Deko Jede Choashi, Jede Sonja Sanjava, Senja Nane Dejena, Nieko Niemo Zantone, Jede de la Donwashi, Soja Kanshi Chosoa, Chuni Jene Jimbade, Niejo Soa Niejana, Gamin Jova Latoa, Deju Rola Jundena, Dela Shanchu Degani, Kanshi Jenjo Totela, Shanchu Sente Kalayu, Gete de Leni Tang, Jenda Chin and Nenjova, Gundu, Dechu Lamena, Shima Shenron, Deji Sha, Sheso, Sundu. Shunju.
So here now, engaging in Bodhisattva state says, since you want all beings to be happy, you have generated the spirit of enlightenment. Then when beings find happiness themselves, why do you get angry with them? If you wish to attend for living beings' welfare, Buddhahood, which is worshipped in the three worlds, why are you tormented when you see their most paltry gain or honor? When a relative finds sustenance for those whom you should nurture, object of your care and generosity, instead of being pleased, are you angry again? If you do not wish even that for beings, how can you wish them enlightenment? Where is the spirit of enlightenment? In someone who gets angry at others' attainments, then whether your enemy gets something from someone or it remains in the benefactor's house, it is never yours. So why be angry, whether it is given or not?
Dero amaso Shanchu ki sense de Cheyudi, Senjata the Neko the Tatu Yawala Marangi Butu, a Chegilo Yudi, 아니 소소기 코 대화데 지고 요다는 게 소소기 터키 땅고야나 그 그런 거는 대화지 루트나 가와 강을 맞도 때라 차도나 나가도 문에 제지요 말어.
So it is really true, when we speak about practicing bodhicitta, we are wishing to have happiness with all other sentient beings. And may I cause all sentient beings to achieve temporary and ultimate happiness or the permanent goodness. And if this is the wish that we have all the time, if this is the motivation that we have in our mind stream at all time, then why we get angry with someone's honor and someone's gain? Why should we, get angry and be unhappy towards someone who is attaining enlightenment and so forth by themselves?
배나 되게 배자도 배나 소자 강시 최소제 배나 맞소 가디에나 소소기 컬레네 파쇼델로 네 사야 통하는 요소 조바데 로봇 제거에게 년년제 제와이나 아니 나실에 년년제 코로나게 아니 맞소기 파제 먹고지 코로나게 장수 통해지 정소나 콜 가와 제거마도 아니 콜 차도 제요 말어 왔어.
So then here the example is that, if some of one's relatives normally that we need, they depends on us for their their livelihoods, and at some point they're able to obtain their own livelihood without depending on us. Won't you be happy? Won't you be rejoiced in their attainment?
되지. 거기 세고라 다간제 맞수 상주기 생랑지를 내면에 깨쳐서 개 말에 개 맞잖아 되기래 얘나 젠이 좋아나 젠 표선 줘봐 용하라 라니기 차도시나 라라 계속 가래도 라라 계속면 돈 에너지 가래도 세네 어 양이.
So then here it's the following discussions that it will discuss about. One should not have a jealousy towards someone's success and someone's gain and honor. Even if you have jealousy towards them, what benefits that you gain out of it? And think about the benefits that you gain out of that, or you accumulate a tremendous amount of negativities by doing so.
되지. 맞추기 내가 먼저도 상추 생의 갈림 우리 거다 가와를 살려야지 상추 생바지기 다라 넘어서도 지고 거지 말어. 거지요 말어.
So it is when we talk about the contradictory, right? So when what it says that if one always think of gaining statement for the benefit of all other sentient beings, which is the actual practice of bodhicitta, and why then it is contradictory that when you have jealousy towards someone whom you dislike is gaining, name or fame and so forth. This is contradictory. That is what is meant by this contradictory. We're not talking about the contradictions of the bodhisattvas and the bodhisattva's deed.
Dragibala Gawata, Lana Nyambi, Samba Nyamba Nanja, Tesanje Dala Minepe, Randu Gyawatsan the Sela, Nana, Ranji, Puanjivi, Nimi, Sane, Nabatanje the Gaba, Shade Sandu.
So then here it says, even your mere malicious thoughts that delight in your enemies' troubles, or that wish for their destructions, do not harm your enemy. They lead only to your own sufferings. Yet, if such malice were to harm them, you should stop it completely, reflecting on the drawback that this will bring ruin to yourself and others.
영어에 대해서 당가서 소소 뭐가 산다고 지라 얘네 코 두자 용어 쇼서 야나 예코 따도 조투어 쇼서 되게 삼바질라나 바로 볼 계획에 내고 말해도 소소기 삼바되게 소소 부수도 봐 수수 몇십 번 좋았잖아.
So it is really true, you know, if you wish, you know, if you have some kind of ill wish towards someone whom you dislike, right? That your negative wish or negative thoughts towards such individual is not going to harm them at all. In fact, it actually harms us. As the moment that you generated such negativities or negative thoughts, it actually narrows your mind. And as it narrows your mind, it destroys your peace of mind. And we are the one. That's what it's.
계속 저랑이 되게 거든지 중요로 제가 삼바되게 바로 볼 내고야나 아니 라라네 제라네 라신이가 폰바지 제도아사네 되게 삼방에 바데 넘버 탄치도 가 그래서.
So then where it says, if such malice were harm them, it says the malice were harm them, you should stop it completely, reflecting on the drawback, you know, that this would bring ruin to yourself and others. Very clear, yeah.
게데 다시 메가나 델라 초가 지시 최주이면 상지네 델라 네비 주민주 최준데베 동해데 주나 초가 지시 게데 세원 지시나 대례 풍아 젠지이 녀모냐베 따바이 치와제네 메레 치완데네 메제세 대존 세니 bomba양 예유 소메 So
then here again, engaging in the bodhisattva's deed states. When my enemies are unhappy, what am I pleased about? My wishes alone will cause them no harm. Even if I should effect their sufferings with my wish, what could I be pleased about? If I say I will be satisfied, what could be more ruinous? Once I'm caught by the terrible sharp hook cast by the fishermen, the afflictions, I will surely be cooked by the hell gardens in the cattle for the beings of hell.
냐베기 냐소 짜지기 냐소나 가르쳐 그래 냐체마소 그래스 아니 녀모게 아니 짜지 zon소나 가르치 녀모게 zon소나 가르쳐 그래 녀이 소마나지 체마소 그래스 샬라소 그래 나오지래.
So it is here now, you know, clearly stated that if the fishermen cast the hook and catch the fish, then what will happen as a result? This will be cooked by the fisherman for his dinner or breakfast or whatever you could say. But if we ourselves are caught by the hook of delusions or the afflictions, then as a result, we will be cooked by the guardians of the hells for their meals.
예, 그래서 걸어가서 이게 카데자디 배는 맞죠 컨트롤 사소세디 컨트롤 사세 유 컨트롤은 뭔지 제는마도 컨트롤은 뭔지 제는 제거야 말아. 녀모는 뭔지 제는 맞아야지 샤와다 녀모기 제사기 유 컨트롤 찍고만 본샤고. 내 본샤디 ranchen de honto ko mero de me jawa je nyomo khoro ngonje ranchen ni me che so na danda nyabe nyazo ma na gi nyomo jawa de ranchen ro so na kangye ma to dewa yo.
So now here, when we generate anger and we are not examining the anger itself, we are merely focusing on the object to whom you generate anger. This is the tendency, the natural tendency that we all have. It is therefore, we are unable to find any faults in generation of our anger. Instead of that, what we should do is when we generate angers, instead of just focusing on the object to whom you generate anger, you should turn around and try to examine the anger itself. If you really understand how the anger is generated, what is the functions of this anger, then you will know that by generating this anger will destroy the peace of mind of oneself, peace of oneself and that of other sentient beings. Just like the delusions of the hook of the delusions will become a meals for the hell gardens, the gardens of the hells.
Tengaso Nyanyu to the Gunzi Cheturi. Penamaso may Sheto Tenero, Kuyima Cadino, no cheap to say, no, Kukadino, Machibo Zogu say at Jachi Jamongo Yungura. Yena change it to the Remado, Chibo may brother Cadino, no, Chigi, Sebal and Juata, Toshete, Tanamasu Jenny, Zeguyaman, Parable, the Junjusuni.
So it is therefore, one of the, very obvious evidence, the way we intensify and way we embrace anger ourselves is that, we have a tendency of saying that such and such individual is always annoying me, always agitating me, always making me angry and so forth. When you are saying that, you're not really looking around, withdrawing your mind and looking around and to see how the anger is generated. We are more, predominantly focusing on the person to whom you get angry. That is the problem with us all the time. We're not really examining ourselves.
Tiki Chen Chen also Danegi Yawa, Danegi Tadansi, the Teroa, Tanda, the Tomorrow Jitayan Sodo, the Seniba to Sigi, Magasa Chilla, Drasela, you did in the Jacha Pigate in a Jat Truya Maris and Lagudus, so the Tomorrow Yans Tando. The Jachi Jarmato, you show the Jepa Pat Tani Janimado, Rani, you told the Shiju Majo and did, and it Pigate no settle a Katina to Jaton Dedi, Juma to Teroa.
So it is therefore we are unable to transform our mind. We are unable to change and train our mind because we are not really examining our own mind, the process of which that we generated anger. We're merely focusing on the other person and finding a fault from that person and thinking that is the only person who makes you angry and who enables you to generate anger, hatred, and so forth. So therefore, it is not something that it is actually mere. It is a clear evidence of not examining our own mind. Therefore, His Holiness often mentions that one of the scientists, maybe psychologists, have actually said that when we consider someone as an enemy, and we have a certain way of thinking that this is a real enemy that is independently existence, and that scientists have mentioned that is, however, it's not so. The negativity that you have towards that is the majority of the negativity. If you have given a percentage, you could say that 80% or 90% of the negativity that we have generated, it's just ourselves. We generated ourselves. Not that such cause of generation of such negativity is existed within that other individual. This is not so.
And Sambal Chadang say, Tindigi, the Guadele, Shinju Yabo Chetona, and what country is on Aya, Zoche Chinchi, Yeo Yasarawa.
So it is always good to examine and why we should, look at individuals whom you think as your loved ones, enemy, and neuter. And then also at the same time, one should also then try to examine one's own mind, why I'm having attachment towards one's loved one, and what is the purpose of having anger and hatred towards someone whom you dislike and so forth. So we need to examine both object as well as in subject.
Any 되게 신주 제외데 얘나 저나 맞쪽이 통보대 주사디게 예 쇼생의 지다 다 자세나데 간시다 간제 예쇼다랑 쇼생의 지다 통보대게 장신 렌질이 여러
So we as ordinary beings, our own our own self, mind, and so forth, and that is others, and this belongs to someone else's, and so forth. It's already existed there. It is there. As we are our very body is composed of this five skandhas. As long as we have that, we will have this of discrimination of self and others.
다들 맞좀 뭐비 내실에 따당 칠게네 아니 그 뭘로 됐어요 뭐도 뭐비 내실에 템비도네 양 로그에다 코노랑 이코노메나 메이리에 이제 도르리 소소 여러
However, the discernment of self and others is nothing wrong with that. But the way we discern is something that's beyond reality. That is the problem that we have. This is something that we need to tame ourselves. We need to try ourselves to tame. Take 10 minutes break here.
당연히 로그인다 마 로샹이다 로 대다란도 랑게 니레 니시진 되비 게셰바다 면되비 쇼주바다 랑게 자이 표선소발라 타지도 면되비 넘버 때나 델레 이메데와 젤라 대페나 셰당지지 타지도 메가올로나 이 메데오 이 메데 돌아서 델로나 셰당 메제웨 하템비 리파나지 대달라 타지도 메가와 넘버 돌아 고테마니 콘트로가바 샤데 니미 신데 체위 셔로 손도
So now here, Paul, we're following this about reading the text here. You will be unhappy if you view absolutely undesirable the obstacles to what you and your friends want movement in interactions you do not want, and the prosperity of your enemies. If this unhappiness increases, you become hostile. If you stop your absolute dislike of these three things, you prevent unhappiness. Once you do this, you will not feel hostile. Thus dispel your absolute dislike of this by using the reasoning previously taught. Take many approaches to stop your anger, because it is a very great fault.
가나 다니 러나 게리 다 담보가 속에 차기를 집어 때나 아니 년게 쇼다 다이 쇼지 러다 단 배선 모자도 다이 쇼는 먼저 나도 얘다 년게 쇼텔라 아니 야고 용고에 년게 쇼로 내가 시에서나 아니 파쇼라 아니 마가와 제게 마가와 제소나 단센 제거에 고 로긴 도노래
Rinpoche engage sunang ke ngiti.
당가 속에 지당 나다 나야 쇼세네 라운드 젠센의 딘디게 문제 제거라 아니 니제 쇼라 야보 용거바 니제 쇼 야보 용바텔라 게셴게 이게 아니 젠제 쇼지 해서나 아니 텔라 이메데와 제거레스 이메데와 제친체라 파쇼텔라 샤당 땡이 마가와 레그레 손도아.
So it is a natural to us as ordinary beings when speaking about one's loved one and one's enemy and so forth. So here now, when someone is helping one's loved ones, and it actually makes us happy. And when someone is, harming and harming our own loved ones and so forth, and it naturally makes us unhappy and generate anger and so forth.
다 뒤쪽에 지 랑쇼를 차바 세네레 젠쇼를 당바 세네레 뒤쪽에 타지도 메가와지 방투로 제와이나 당아 저기 뒤쪽에 저기 랑쇼를 차바 젠쇼를 당바 랑쇼를 차바 가세 슈제와 젠쇼를 당와 젠쇼를 당와 가세 레와도 랑쇼를 차와레고 차단이 보더니 이게 아니 맞고 코아코고를 세야 돼 뒤쪽에 저기 메시지게
So here now, this attachment towards one's loved one and anger towards someone whom one dislikes, right? And those are the two main causes: attachment and aversion, or the hatred, are the two main causes which binds us within this unenlightened existence or the cyclic existence.
뒤쪽이 차단이 보더라 타지데 님이 딱 그러면 또 아니 종마도 계속 지내면 님이 시대 체위 싫어서 고아지 낸다로 가들 그래 그냥 랑지보 연하세데 나다 나이와 지보 연하세 마치보 연하세데 젠 여와도 지레오레 젠 여와도 그래서나 아니 델라템비기 단센레사레 아니 베데 여와시는 로딩에 지레비콜라 랑이네 지보여만 랑이 로보이네 지보여만.
So this the attachment and aversions need to be eliminated, because as Rinpoche has mentioned earlier, that attachment and aversions go hand to hand. The more you have attachment towards one's loved ones, the more you have hatred and aversion. In other words, the aversion towards other beings, someone whom you dislike and so forth. So therefore, try to find the faults in this absolute attachment and absolute aversion. Without doing that, then it says, because it has a very great fault. It is already mentioned in the text, right? So we're being in the center of our self-grasping mind. We're being at the center of one self-grasping mind. And then letting whatever our attachment and aversion wants to do is the one that regularly binds us within this unenlightened existence or the cyclic existence. So we are really, dominated by those delusions, mainly by attachment and aversion. Think about, my world or the human world. Then it goes, stronger, my country, then my community, my surrounding, and then me, which is the most precious that we think this is something that is most precious that needs to be cherished.
이미 신의 체비실을 세대 차당이 당가서 먼저 차당래 차당 코너이 정원의 손에 아니 레카나 가르사베네 데사 아니 코알 제네야 로미도 제데 이미 신의 체비실 세대.
So it is therefore, it take many approaches to stop your negativities, in other words, because it is a very great fault, it says, right? It is a very great fault because it is due to this, attachment and aversion. It's not letting us, go beyond this cyclic existence. It actually encaged us. It is a cause for encaging us within this unenlightened existence.
상추기 생을 못 채는 런질을 제소나 차당기 레카데 뭐 쉬우지 가요 거라. 또 차당기 레카 쉬우지 가요디 갈레 당세기 레카디 가요 거도도 맞아 거도도. 또 당세기 막 부르는데 막 땅에도 차당이 땅요 거래. 차당이데 상추 생자다 저디 당세 코너를 무슨 예보데 제투고 말해다 당세기 레카 제기 차당이 뭐기 랑가데 가요도.
So if one is able to practice bodhicitta and generate bodhicitta, then it will really stop our attachment and aversions. By stopping or by ceasing this attachment and aversion, eventually it will also, stop the self-grasping. Although the self-grasping mind or the self-grasping or the cannot be eradicated by means of generating bodhicitta, it will at least, prevent oneself from engaging in negativities, engaging in actions that are derived by anger and hatred.
다행이다. 고비 당하장선도 다들 고비 턱 되도 고비 당하장 하때비 제세는지 리파 장게 녀모바다 간레시아네 카난도로데 다이초 컨트롤 좀바시비 춘데다 임베 마레 춘데다 임베 소소도비 싫어지 레바시네 리피고트마네 카나 컨트롤 나운세지 리타마 케시 Zopa Gotamani Chela, Yantabi Longe Tun, Chumamibi, Zipe, Niebi, Goatin Subali Chebi, Nua Yimbe, Pacha Shinda Temba Yeno, Sondu, Menga, Tama.
So now there is this instructions. It's a very important instruction. It says, this instruction, the lines of the reasonings of conquerors and their children presented above provide the techniques for defeating your greatest enemy, anger. They involve arguing with your own afflictions and looking within yourself. When you analyze well with discerning wisdom and stop anger with many lines of the reasoning, you prevent many different types of anger and you become patient in many ways. Since this is experience engendered by and penetrating understanding that use flawless reasoning to get at the meaning of correct scriptures, this lives an extremely stable latent potency.
다들 가서 그 세부 쉬우지. 가서 내 동보 컨트롤 사선 가르쳐 야나 쩨죠. 야나 징그리 도사시는 세례 당거마도 파쇼 컨트롤 사세 텔마도 니미다 말어. 같이 자고 말어.
So we as an initial practitioner or the ordinary beings, what happens with us when we are angry with someone? Maybe we have argument with them, or we maybe even have a fight with them, or in a worst case, we may be killed by someone, or you become a killer, murderer of someone else and so forth. So this is what it happens, because we are not examining our own negative thoughts and emotions. We are completely thinking that other person is the one who makes you angry and who makes you engage in such actions and so forth.
제세 상추 삼만한테 대체야 말이서 랑기 녀모라 갈렌체 랑기 녀모라 카데자네 니 드라이 초도 저거 컨트롤데 정바시어레서.
So, unlike our way of defeating our enemy by arguing and fighting and so forth, the bodhisattvas always look at their anger and try to have a battle with them and gain a victory over that battle, over their anger, sorry.
된주기 컨트롤데 까로나 컨트롤이 리스 집에 녀모 먹고 쉬지 냥돌라 캔도레서도.
If one is able to stop this anger, then there are many kinds of negativities that possibly followed by this anger will be stopped as well.
된주기 컨트롤 먹고 쉬지 파케서는 루쇼라 가린 거라서 니 저바강 요거라. 니 컨트롤 카데를 샹바리 컨트롤 가세기 총으로서는 샹바 컴퓨터로 니미답에 돈을 세워다. 소소도비 싫어기 제비 돈에 컨트롤데 가세 가서는 이게 루쇼되라. 아니 샹바다 저 컴퓨터래요. 저바 컴퓨터래요.
So then, by finding a fault and following the reasonings, if one is able to prevent this anger, occurring in one's stream of mind, one's stream of being, then this will then increase. On the other hand, it will increase and enhance one's practice of love, sense of caring for others, and a practice of patience.
당가 저기 배는 소소라고 지시나 지 농이 잡된데 집바다 농지니까기 집에 토네 고아딘 수바 지내서나 디나인 좋았던 것들이 바차 템버 되그래서도.
So then, if one is able to follow the practice by following both scripture and the reasonings, both reasonings and the scripture, or the instructions, in other words, then you will be able to implant the stable latent potency in the stream of being, in the stream, in one's own mind stream.
당가 저기 컨트롤 매버서고 매가 가르를 써서나 아니 컨트롤 코너랑라 니미다네 컨트롤 매버서고래 대양 ран지레 집이 컨트롤에 신주제네 매버서고래 손도아 대 단지 녀러바는 녀러서 니 배차 손도 맞소게 레던 보어서기 파카데 자는마도 컨트롤 측카데 장이 매와.
So the core instruction for preventing anger is to find the faults in anger. That is the core instructions. Try to find a faults in angers. Without finding a faults in anger, and it is not possible for us to actually stop anger and generation of anger within one's mind stream. As I have said earlier, that when we generate anger towards someone, we're not really trying to look at our own mind and our anger and examine that. Rather, we think that that person is the one who makes me angry, and we think that you are getting angry and you have a right to get angry with this person.
당가 저기 추쇼네 시르데 컨트롤에 님이 딱 그래서 파쇼데 베데 쇼방에 바데 베데 자연의 쇼시 장난 쇼시에서 그렇지 드링가서 고알년에 좋아하거든 델레도 내도도.
So then, however, when we say that one should not generate anger towards others and stop anger towards others and so forth, and one should not get angry towards others and so forth, we might think that again, we're just letting others take advantage of us. This is, however, it's not so.
근데 좋아해 비가라 저기 단지로에 로디 슈체더라. 님이 따서데 유리 님이 따는마도 이제는 님이 마다 슈체와체. 아니 이제 코로나 이 코로나 마도 이제는 산나지는 마토이디 뎀바강가 소소를 여바데 슈체는 로에데 전대로.
So this is what it happens, when we think about, it is not something someone who makes us take advantage of us, but rather you think about, when you say that you are angry with someone, and you're angry with someone, and you think the very cause of that anger lies within that individual. This is the main fault that we have with us. We're not really thinking about the anger that we have in us is the one that makes us unhappy, that makes us engage in all kinds of negative actions, through body and speech. We're not thinking about that. We always think about the other person, turning around and looking outward and thinking, this is the person who makes me angry.
Tendru kasi jasa shiwa lagi songo de tendru ki yu kono rang la da chunju tiyo gana zota jini yo ma re. Ani pe na, ani soso rangji tiyo sho da yen chanzo tiyo ba de jiba re songo ne. Ani kuwa de rangji hango kanshu songo derwa.
So therefore, Shantideva has stated that one should not blame elsewhere when one is getting angry, when one generates anger, and so forth. And because if we always think about and looking elsewhere, or looking outward, in other words, and trying to find a cause for anger and so forth, we will find all kinds of objects which you think is all of them are the cause of your anger. So without examining our own mind. So therefore, he has mentioned that if you were to step out and see the entire earth is covered by the thorns or the needles, only thing that is safe for you to step on it is to have a good shoes with good sole, so that you can step on that earth, that you will be prevented yourself from pricked by those needles and so on.
Labada yang ngaso le tongbo adela ini kasa ko nyumo jasa gi chen de la ini jung nyawa yin sa de nyumo che de shu chen bo yere ini chaje pomo yi de nyawa ne bi shese de nyumo pom do yin sa yu nyumo ne nyawa kase ne wa sa ya nyumo shu chen bo che de ne yi bi ko la ya yu pang ge yi gao dang tu dang de yang ran yi nyang nyong le de ne an so so lan le tu tu de de mo bo yin wo ro.
So we, as a initial practitioner or the ordinary beings, it is again wise to be a distance from whom you may be or likely generate more negativities and so forth. So therefore, we find in the Abhidharma where it stated, "Tagya pampo mind, you need your never summarimche." So we have not abandoned the proclivities, and object of delusions are nearby. So therefore, it says, when the objects of delusions are nearby, you immediately get angry, or you immediately disturbed, because you have not abandoned those proclivities.
간제 간저지 젠드 체나 베테코 소소만 나 통해 소리 대비 우주전에 근데 대문도 젠 자도 이기 때문에 제바 제거해도 자도 이젠도 제바 제거해도 세네 될 쥐터 제거해도 소소소게 다시 제 거에도 뺏게 쳐버려도 베테 다시 젠은 뭐냐네 바로 질라네 다 소소소소면하면서 생각 뭐예요.
So here now, it takes take many approaches to stop your anger. It says, right? You take many different approaches and try to find many different methods. In other words, examining in the object to whom you get angry, or examining one's own mind, and so forth. Without going through this examining that object and both subject, then you just remaining and letting this anger arises in you. And then at some point, this become uncontrollable. and people, go through a tremendous amount of sufferings by means of the generation of intense anger. So we as human beings, unlike other sentient beings such as animal and so forth, we have a special intellect that we can examine ourselves. Examining, we have a potential of examining our own mind. We have a potential of examining the object and so forth. And so therefore, it is just like as someone, if we were to compare ourselves with animals, we have more intellect. Intellectually, we have, much advanced. So therefore, it is just like someone who is blind and who has who completely lost their sight and who has a sight and so forth. So here now, if one is able to eliminate those angers by applying antidotes and so forth, it's the best way. One should do so. If that is not possible, and if that is likely to, if you know that you will be in such circumstances where you're likely to get angry and so forth, you should try to ignore that. And one should use all sorts of methods and skillful means to not make yourself angry, because making yourself angry is unhappiness. It is something that makes us unhappy, right? This is a very, strong instructions. The last paragraph where it says by Lama Tsongkhapa in the text itself, the Lam Rim text itself, where it says, those who reject meditative analysis with discerning wisdom are those who reject the whole of the great undertaking of Bodhisattva's deeds, such as this. Understand that such rejection is the worst hindrance to causing a life of leisure for the benefit of yourself and others. Get rid of it as you would poison. So here now, previously we have gone through the discussions of the other's proponent, right? By saying that analytical meditation is something that is not necessary. It is only the single-pointed meditation. That is all it is matter as a spiritual practitioner. Now here, what it says here is now we see very clearly that without going through analytical meditations, it is not possible for us to recognize those negative thoughts and emotions. So analytical meditation is as important as the single-pointed meditations.
그 세리기 세차 코너 대화 자제 아니 유통이 해봐요 말이야. 유통 안에 이제 몇지 잡았잖아요. 유통.
So here now, without going through this, so this instruction is something that you need to highlight, and it's a very, very important here. Since without going through the analytical meditations, mere focusing on single-pointed meditations, then all the practice of the bodhisattvas will not be will not be possible for oneself. Will not be possible for one to take. So therefore, without making this the practice, without making this practice of bodhisattva possible, will not be able to extract the essence from one's life of leisure and fortune. In other words, that this precious human rebirth. So therefore, think about how important it is for us to have this practice, the meditative practice, analytical meditative practice, to really to follow the practice of the bodhisattvas.
두신의 방송도 두신의 방송이 시간 그거 말해서 두신의 방송에도 조금 매발에 제가 조금 지고에 유행이야 말이야. 가서는 조금 매나 빼나 맞춰 심하는 맞춰나 심하 카도 너무 뭐요한테 대투에데 아니 조간에 아니 진짜게 매노기 빼나 세차도 해와데 세차 놀러서 손에 샤워데 제가 전에 마도 손에 샤요 말이야.
So we're not just saying, we're not saying that we do not need single-pointed meditations. Single-pointed meditation is something that is also very important. But it's also very, very important to have analytical meditations. Because without going through the analytical meditations, you will not be able to discover the reality, right? In order to discover reality, we need to go through analytical meditations. Just mere stabilizing one's own mind or just mere maintaining the single pointedness will not really, it will not enable us to discover the reality. So therefore, analytical meditation is something that enables us to discover the reality, discover the reality. Having discovered the reality will then be that very discoverer of that reality must be then focused single-pointedly, which requires a single-pointed meditations. So therefore, both single-pointed meditation and an analytical meditations are equally important. So get rid of it as you would poison, right? So we're not talking about get rid of single-pointed meditation. This is not what we are talking about. We're talking about get rid of something that says someone or something that says analytical meditation is not something that is important. It is not necessary. This need to be gotten rid of. So therefore, get rid of it as you would poison, right? This is how Lama Tsongkhapa instructed. This is a very telling instructions.
니바 동에 다 되게 가서 이게 주문한 받은 짓이 다 니바 동에 당내 저바 간지 되는다. 그래서 조로고서 야만이 쳐도 니바 동에 당들에 비 저바 저바 저바라 송원체 동해 당내 니바 급이 전생 대체비 더 지구권에 제바시바오 동번에 손도.
The next is developing the patience of accepting sufferings. So developing the patience of accepting suffering has the three parts. The reason you must definitely accept sufferings, the way to develop acceptance, the detailed explanation from the viewpoint or basis.
대체 당 가서 동해 당내 저거 세디 양 가서 배디 카시 캔서 쇼 거로라 지 가서 또 내가 당로 집에서 소소를 매버지 이제다 질 당들 내면서 대고한테 말와.
So now here we need to understand what is meant by the reason you must definitely accept suffering. It's not that you are voluntarily accepting something that is unnecessary. This is not what we were talking about.
대체 되게 고아데 된도 된다. 동번에宣주례선도 대유전에 장가시 동해 전에 신도만 제송바다 랑 장차라 동해 강영로와시 진도 정에 대 랑도 치셰바시 매드메롱데 대다 마이나 대 로딜레 송바다 야나 셰다젤라 야나 라고발라 소시유 숑바제네 겨와라 조유 바체던 조유 쇼로 손
Yeah, then they said the reason you must definitely accept suffering. So there's a reasoning behind why we should accept sufferings, which says engaging in bodhisattva states, the cause of happiness sometimes occur, whereas the cause of happiness sometimes occurs, and whereas the cause of suffering occurs frequently. It says, as you continually experience whatever suffering is appropriate to you, you absolutely must know how to bring into the path. Otherwise, as the compendium of training says, you either generate hostility or you become discouraged about cultivating the path, either circumstances inferring to applying yourself to virtue.
대다 뭐네지 당가서 지 가서 카진을 시에서나다 제가 나지 동해도 유예 받이지로 제가 나지기 동해대 고체사디 셔그래 아니 제비가도 개그래 개어도 단지 나지 끼지 좋아도 돼 그 주버들레사디 되면 괜찮아도.
So now the three kinds of suffering that we all know that we go through such sufferings, right? Such as suffering of birth, aging, and death. Those are the basic three sufferings. That once you are born, you are subject to aging, and once you are aging, then this will then be followed by the death. So those are the basic three sufferings that we all recognize, right?
특히 예샤샤 대 소속이 용어 대다 말에 유행 레생이 지금 이제잖아 medioba지 power medioba 토도 보바상이 될 돈에쯤부터 용어 말와. So
but then the thing is that we are not accepting it. It's difficult for us to accept those sufferings. Although we are subject to go through such sufferings, but it is very hard for us to hard to accept. So without not accepting the reality is the additional sufferings for us.
대면에 가서 저거도 배는 이제다 바춘서지 시에서는 거기 나서는 전에 칼라면서 가르치는만 얘는 아니 수포 용서 좀 받으면 매버서야 근데 장도 강에 채우도 참바돼서 나나 졸라 또 쇼도.
So we also find that there are some people even when they are suffering from a little, such as headache and so forth, and they make very big deal out of it, and not eating and not doing anything and sleeping day and night, and actually ruining their own life, right? So this is what is happening to us without having any patience and not accepting such little sufferings, not being able to accept such, very minor sufferings.
Tendrukala Gyadway the Payusha, Sosogi, Jede, Shagatas, Chemato Yundua, the Colonel Besson on that, and Long Gambala so show you Shumbachi and Gyala Joy Pachi Jogora Sonda, the little Seba Setanoa. Jetumare, said the Segareta, Nija Tuchi, Laka Chagoetazala, can get trimmed the Chosona, take you the gender, Moboroa.
So here now, since we are unable to bear even a very minor sufferings, let alone that when you are going through such sufferings, that you will be able to engage in the virtuous deed. But not only that, but you even can't. You are actually, neglecting what is necessary for you to do. You should be doing on your day-to-day life. What you have been doing normally on your day-to-day life are all, set aside.
Shuda was a chese gen, don't get chese gen, don't gen, don't tell you the jet to Marada. You hang in by the Chisona, and someone on the death is the Densoya. Benamatogi, such a thing at the page of Minnesota Nashi Tomo, Yankahali, Tomo, the Sevicola, in Shasha de Jimato, bet don't to Mewa. Such a Jendakilo Tomo, hope the Kale would tell the donation of the Kangi trade, and detention in the Yondora.
So here now, if you're already accepting those sufferings, and you know that we are subject to go through such sufferings, although that one may not be able to take those sufferings about cultivating the path, one is at least will be able to prevent the additional suffering by worrying it, right? If you're able to accept that. Without accepting, we are creating additional suffering on it. So just like, think about the weather in Minnesota, right? We all know that weather is going to be very cold in winter, so we know that. We're accepting it right now. So for us, as a resident of Minnesota, we're not having that difficulty of facing such, harsh weather, although it is really, really cold, but we do not. But then when you think about the people from other states, other part of the countries, it becomes unacceptable for them.
Oh, the in Shasha Jesona, did you know to donate to this? The Dangali Horses and assemble checking the Desiana, there's a logo, this shower. But
you
Tadamalu never thought about the damage in some areas and a better passion and Chalmari.
You will not become discouraged if you already if you have acceptance of those sufferings in ourselves, that you're thinking that such suffering may come into me. I may come across with such suffering because I'm subject to. So you, as once you have such set of mind, then you will not have additional sufferings.
Pache de Jew Shoroch. Dayansa, that don't hear country was Dayan, don't hear Kachine, Jenja Shaban, you. Kachine, Hana Zumba Share Magic, Kana, much ledge Jaban, you. Kachine, Odin Chebata, Giri Shawa, Della Shune, Joan, Mashuna Minjoan, you to also.
So then it says, moreover, some suffering will be caused by others, and some will be produced by your former karma. Whether or not you strive at the path, some says will as we'll explain below, occur when you engage in the virtuous activity, but do not occur when you're not on it, or when you're not so engaged.
You thought it. That much leather change on never cheba tetane reshido minichi. Shoya tell a tandem she got it. Demena don't Numa tea and Rangi Tobe Jebi Sentage Donhe Nene Shindu Zokawa Jola. Tane Yona Donhe Shija Tella Malo Jang, Della Mini, Yimidi, Senji, don't hit it, Deminjola, don't hit Jelan, Long, don't hit Jelan, Long the Cheddar Sheva, don't hit Chit, Chuan Jewi, Zupa, Nubi Shiro, Dena, don't hit Donage Zupa Jeva, Nature was.
This is moreover, for the time beings, you cannot dispel the sufferings definitely produced by the power of former karma and immediate conditions. You must accept them when they arise, because if you do not do this, in addition to the basic sufferings, you have the suffering of worry that is produced by your own thoughts, and then the suffering becomes very difficult for you to bear. If you accept the suffering, you let the basic sufferings be and do not stop it. But you never have the suffering of worry that creates discontentment when you focus on the basic sufferings. Since you are using method to bring even basic sufferings into the path, you generally lessen your sufferings so you can bear it. Therefore, it is very crucial that you generate the patience that accept suffering.
Leji ongi chungi dunga dosa tena me boda cha kabore da sana tandongi chane mokono sengi tono lola ene senje tube meyo ngada tube meyo tentiki ngone dunga tangi pengur sondo.
Although that your karma, the suffering that you are experiencing due to one's former karma, one may not be able to eradicate such sufferings at the moment. But the way of your thinking, the way you handle such sufferings will lessen the intensity of the sufferings.
딱 동해 옆에 돈에 다 지나이나 루이지 동해데 선박이 소유디 선발을 뉴슈데 자체 그래다 얘나야 그 용바데 용샤샤데 지금 제베디 아니 체지 아니 센테슈 첨부데 해그 말했어도.
So when you have such physical sufferings, suddenly whenever we have physical sufferings, it gives us some kind of unpleasant feeling, right, due to the physical sufferings. Yet at the same time, if you are able to accept such physical sufferings mentally, then the mental suffering will be not intense, because it will reduce the intensity of the mental sufferings by doing so.
근데 인제로 지다이나 맞추 때에 동해 단에서는 야산이 힘을 들마도 뭐 로고 첨부터 쓰기 지 아제 첨부도 컨트롤 첨부터 쓰기 동해 치세 제도고 동해 치세제는 하나 제가 봐 유셔도 컨트롤 슈첨을 넘비거라 이 저만도 차쇼로 다나 하모고니 되는 요거로 그 생각이 최소지 다 제발이만도 이 소화도 집에 지장로.
Yeah, it is very true, but the way of our thinking, the way we accept such suffering and the thought that we have with us really makes difference in our suffering, the physical sufferings for sure. Let's take a very simple example of someone, in other words, who is intensely angry, someone who get intensely angry towards somebody, and such person will not even feel a pain when someone hits him or her. And at the moment, it is due to his way of thinking, to arrogance and anger that we have inside. It actually prevents from this, painful experiences that has been experienced by this individual. Even cutting their own body, and then we have some saying that due to this anger, they cut their own stomach, and even the intestines are coming out of their stomach. They don't feel much. Of course, in reality, we all have the similar feeling, physically and mentally. But at the moment, what the person is not really having such intense pain is because such individual is such, physical pain is prevented by the very strong thought he or she has, cultivated at the moment.
There is also the cases on a custom maybe judges in but the cases on Chesana, any Rangi Shatayam, Jibaton to Nigi, Santa Leguera. Let on board.
So here now, if you think about the practitioner's point of view, if one is really encouraged and becomes so courageous of engaging in practice of giving, such as the practice of giving or protection of protection to others, or practice of giving, preventing fear from others and so forth, and such perfected practitioners can even give their own limbs and on their own, cut their own limbs and give it away to others for the benefit of others. This is the sign of who is actually applying the practice of accepting the sufferings, voluntarily accepting the sufferings.
Yeah, and yet that is Javi, Tangazo. Tangazo Chusini, Yerela, Chene Chavate, and then number 2 on Jiramochi, Artige, the Gombatangas Chamachi drew to a Mishedam, the Palanzachi, and the Jilan drew to a down, and the Kyozomo yes, and it's Seragunda, and nada long term Majava Stone, Nagi, any Ranjis and Tachi, any Tusango, Yamado and Yansalene, Zubi Sanji Kobon, Yohan the Tony Baji damage. Ningarorangi Cheng, Chen Numaya, Dena should be Lama Sanji, no Shinjo so Zanani, one the Molanada.
So now let's dedicate our merits. As we gathered here today and spend 2 hours of receiving the teachings of the Dharma. So by means of receiving such Dharmas, may I follow the footsteps of the great beings such as Buddha Shakyamuni and his followers. And it is very fortunate for me to be able to engage in such practice and receive such teachings of the great beings. And by means of receiving such teachings, may I embark on the unmistaken path, not only myself, but also may I lead all other beings to the venture on the unmistaken path. And may all this practice or the teachings that I have done become a cause for complete enlightenment by all and all other sentient beings by receiving the teachings, contemplating and meditating. So may all beings gain state of enlightenment for the benefit of other sentient beings. May I be the responsible for establishing all other sentient beings to the state of enlightenment. May all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions bless me to be able to do this.
天边人波根藏能觉就年能周边街道年些数让给之间多别能觉呢求着资源张月到给若月也就面包谁先呢家业担保有人先就进两包人间说给马家母悄悄娘婆就别说的呢你就请别一人就不一别的对的是我是不说最近教育面向真的呢你着想就能就天别他的能就一了别的心教育怎么人都讲究能从主编天见主席夜间世界门当门面给才到更多家业忙不易能到这我忙就急刚才贴吧出了就是最近住了怎么的原则昨天能就到处出现这些将子说就见就是那边不在少点那个城的说就结果老上点边这边上算的若也没在到年就结光着过夜心光子天堂的我们的永远现在在我天真叫做一小别心的我多点就结小别八月知道结果更多让我这样的见的得到感觉就是道路也我得到当街少多么就从西边叫我当街我看了就都很不的老人给人找我的感觉让我谢谢老多哎呀，多谢了，Thank you。
Thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you,
Thank you,
Nimala.
Rinpoche.
Thank you. Thank
哎
you,
呀，
Nima.
你们多谢，
So,
Farewell.
俺这，我呀，人家能给我，我难。